Hey, Brass Facts here. It's time to do what we do best on the Brass Facts channel. Talk about brass fact. No, actually, we talk about LPVOs in excruciating detail. The victim of choice today, the Tango 6 1-6X first focal plane from SIG, specifically the SOT 61239 model, and the 1-8X first focal plane VCOG from Trijicon, the SCO model. That's right, double feature. If you've missed the title, you'll note that both of these optics happen to be the Army and Marine Corps LPVO, respectively. Both are somewhat used in nearly identical roles, as magnification on the general infantry-style rifle, with the goal of increasing hit probability, PID, while still providing, 1x performance. The things we use LPVOs for, right? We'll compare the two and see if they make sense for their respective branches, and more importantly, which I, and perhaps you, might prefer. As a plot twist, I actually broke one of them, and it's probably not the one you think. Alright, let's roll into it. The Tango 6 presents itself as a very much bog-standard LPVO with extra anodizing to really capture that Razor HD legacy, while the VCOG, in typical Trijicon fashion, looks like a black turd that could survive a nuclear blast. The Army 6 Tango 6 sports a very refined reticle, horseshoe for the 1X, leads, wind holds, and an optimistic BDC that ranges out to 1,000. Honestly, a very clean and functional reticle, but nothing revolutionary. Probably would be one of my favorites if it wasn't for the absence of any ability to auto-range, which seems like a big miss. My biggest complaint is probably on the 1X that the reticle is quite small. It's not as small as some of the other examples I've reviewed on this channel, and it's certainly right on the cusp of being usable. There are scenarios where you're going to lose this thing on a darker backdrop. Just a 20, maybe 30% increase of the horseshoe thickness would have done a lot here to really push this into the realm of being excellent. The VCOG SCO is a bit more complex, opting for something more akin that we'd see in a precision or DM style setup, and in fact, I believe that's where this original reticle originated from. Props to Trijicon, I think a lot of fat's been trimmed off here, and it's certainly far less busy than most Christmas tree style reticles, which is what we want to see in a combat optic. Once again, no auto-ranging though. Yeah, I know we can range via mils, but first off, Marines can't do math, and I've actually tried counting mils on a moving human. It's a lot harder than you think. I personally think BDC would make a lot more sense here, and the level of granular refinement doesn't really make sense on a combat rifle, but I suspect here that the UMC lacks confidence to commit this optic to a singular round, which is what you would need to do with a BDC, when the DoD seems content on switching rounds every 4.5 minutes. Alright, we gotta talk about the 1X performance. You guys know I love me my 1X performance. The Tango 6 pushes right up to, but not quite, to what I consider amazing 1X, and people will be quite happy with it generally speaking. There is a bit of distortion and warping, or barreling, especially if you kind of wave it around a lot, but it's certainly tolerable. The image itself is actually quite close to 1X. Both of these in concert come together to make for something that is just really a comfortable LPVO at 1X. Still on the 1X, I'd rank it notably below the best second focal planes, such as the Razor HD, PST, Delta Striker, and maybe even that new Primary Arms Nova. Compared to other first focal plane optics like the Strike Eagle, the older NX8, the GLX 1-6, the Voodoo 1-10X, the Razor HD 1-10X, it comes out on top. It is worse than the PLX-C first focal plane, but that thing actually just has black magic on 1X. In most environments, the image flatness and the minor distortion isn't enough to tip off your reptilian brain that you are indeed looking through a semi-magnified image, and the whole thing just works. You may have issues in the dust, where the gnat-sized reticle begins to kind of just vanish against the backdrop, but hey, pray you didn't run out of batteries and go ahead and turn that illumination on. The VCOG has a much more complicated 1X, something I'd probably consider borderline for my personal taste. The image itself is actually quite flat, probably even better than the Tango 6, with only minor barreling when moving and a little bit of distortion. But it's distinctly not quite true 1X. I'm guessing this is due to the enlarged objective lens. Now, all LPVOs have a degree of not 1X-ness, and we just discussed the degrees of not 1X-ness. Wow, that was a terrible fucking line. But for the VCOG in practice, yeah, it's okay during the day, but in low light or dusk 1X shooting, it's quite lacking, and you'll very often find yourself kind of relapsing where the image uncollimates, as in your off eye and your main eye, will see two separate unique images that your brain can't kind of bring together. And you're going to find yourself swapping between your focus on the scope eye or the off eye, or you're probably going to get slight double vision, or both. The 1X performance is absolutely subjective though, and it kind of depends on eye dominance. I'm sure there are people out there that can fully collimate this in a full range of scenarios, and because the image is very flat, it will appear very good to them. In our group of 4, we found it more often miss than hit, and a lot of us struggled in low light scenarios where the images would, uncollimate. The reticle design has a lot going on, definitely focused on the precision end of things with a very good high-end reticle with very fine aiming points. I like it there, and the wind holds are absolutely excellent as mentioned. For the 1X, it's on the better end, but it still leaves something to be desired. I found the overall segmented circle kind of a little bit too large to be bracketed for anything at ranges where I care about it, but ultimately the reticle accomplishes the functionality of being usable in the daytime without losing it under recoil, and that's all that really matters. Glass quality throughout the range is acceptable for both, maybe even in the great. But nowadays glass performance is much higher than it used to be, and the newer scopes in this price bracket put up better or similar performance. So not really an upside, not really a downside. I think the VCOG has slight edge in color, but I think that's more coating, I don't know, maybe. Could have also been the testing conditions. The illumination on both of these guys is the standard LPVO affair, not red dot bright. The Tango 6 tries really hard to make it to the point with its Hellfire Bright reticle, where it does indeed actually help you see the fine center aiming point in broad daylight. And for a fleeting second, you might be convinced that, oh my gosh, this might be red dot. Damn it, it ran out of batteries. Yeah, there is a lockout function on the Tango 6 to prevent you from, turning it on by mistake. But if you do leave it on, the battery lasts about 48 hours. But to have usable daylight bright settings, you really only have about 10 to 15 hours before the battery begins to run out of chooch and the reticle begins to dim. So you gotta micromanage that illumination knob. The VCOG is notably less bright, more so opting for a low light illumination style that lights up the entire reticle. I think it's a tad annoying for this specific scenario that they actually illuminated the outer segmented circle. When you use illumination in low light, you can see it just fine, but the outer segmented circle tends to really crowd the already borderline crowded reticle and the poor low light performance, and you just have a lot of stuff in your face that you're trying to look through to see the target. The upside is, well, this thing has pretty good battery life due to its AA battery. I've had this thing on full chooch and it lasts about a week and a half, slightly less.
I'm fucking dead.
The VCOG has grown a reputation for being a heavy bitch of an optic, but let's actually take a look at that. The VCOG comes in at a staggering 31.1 ounces. The Tango 6 comes in at the very standard 22 ounces. But then you add non-QD and the Tango 6 rockets up to 27.5 ounces. My 5 years of engineering telling me that's, 3.6 ounces. That's not much in the grand scheme of a rifle. If your rifle is heavy, 3.6 ounces on the center aiming point isn't really going to make it light, and 3.6 ounces isn't really going to ruin it either. For the USMC VCOG, it actually comes with a nicer LaRue QD integral mount. The other versions come with the new QRP little spinny boy. I haven't messed with that at all, so I don't really know how those hold up. Add on top of that the extreme ruggedness, the much larger and longer battery life, quality of life, and actually 3.6 ounces doesn't seem so bad for an optic. Now, you can go a lot lighter, and then that 3.6 ounces is going to look a lot more like 10 ounces, and that does actually make a notable difference. These two optics are very much products of their respective military branches and ethos. The Tango 6 is an inoffensive LPVO that comes with a BDC for fast, simple PID, shooting at range. It's expected probably to last 5 to 10 years, and then the Army's going to find a new optic for it. It comes with a mount with instructions on it, so you cannot fuck it up.
The USMC will be using the VCOG probably for the next 3 wars.
Ow.
It will pull double duty as a rifle optic, a hammer, spare ordnance for their mortar, and probably as a backup sighting system for their Harrier pilots in 2050 when we're fighting aliens. The Marines see your unfuckable mount with instructions and raise you a mount literally built into the optic. And they're probably going to break that somehow as well. The heaviest optic of all time, combined with the heaviest variant of the M4, the M27 IAR, leads to a hilarious combo that only the USMC really could appreciate. For you and me, however, the Tango 6 is frankly the safe, competent choice. No one is going to complain if they get a Tango 6. I would view it as the Mario of upper-end LPVOs. Not offensively bad in any regards, but perhaps outside of higher than average 1x performance, it doesn't really stand out in any regard, which is interesting when you're spending $1,500 on an LPVO. You either have more money than sense, or you probably have a developed understanding of what features you prefer. For example, if I want the best 1x with first focal plane, there are better options, like the PLXC. If I want red dot bright first focal plane, we have the NX8. If we want the best 1x with daylight performance, we're going to have to give up on reticle options and use the whole range of second focal plane options I mentioned earlier. If we want something really lightweight, we got the NX8 and, well, another PLXC, or the Mark V Patrol from Leopold. If we want more magnification and kind of to narrow in on that long range performance and really rely on our red dot as our 1x, well, we can go with something like the 1 to 10x Voodoo. If we want to go all in on tandemizing, the Razor HD has got you covered. Now, to be sure, it's a very good optic, and if you're not really sure what you want to kind of narrow in on, it's probably the best choice for you. Granted, I think the PLXC is better, but that has a reticle that is very polarizing, and it's perpetually out of stock. The VCOG is a much harder universal recommend. Its $2,000 price tag right out of the gate just makes it completely unrealistic for most people. That's just a lot of money. And unfortunately, unlike the Elcan, I don't really think it has any standout raw performance metrics that really make it, a fit for some people. It's literally a Credo 1 to 8x first focal plane crammed into a durable housing with the price dialed to 11. But the VCOG sort of has a if you know appeal to it. If you have to ask, the VCOG isn't really for you. But for some people, it has just the right features to make it a perfect fit. In the era of lightweight LPVOs that are kind of fragile, shoving a Credo 1 to 8x, a kind of LPVO into an armored hull is actually quite appealing. Could it be better? Probably. But every time I see another LPO fart out all of its nitrogen or a $400 mount breaks, I move closer to the Church of VCOG. Except, fuck, we broke the VCOG. So, you probably figured this out, but we put the VCOG on a Scar 17, which despite what people say, actually had zero recoil. It's with an M1 Sherman muzzle brake on the end, but it does have really weird harmonics, which allegedly, and we saw that here, rattles optics to death. After 5 range sessions at about 660 rounds of 308, which is absolute fuck-ass ton of 308, by the way. Thanks, Eclipse Armory. Go check them out, link in the, you know how it works. The central portion of the VCOG shifted, as in the piece of glass that the reticle is etched on rotated. So now it's really cattywampus. It's kind of zeroed, but obviously completely fucked otherwise. I can see the alternative title now. The Optic, the USMC pick, broke after 4 days in Oregon with 3 drunk retards. Credit to Luke C on that one, who also, by the way, let me borrow this optic, so yeah, sorry, dude. But he shot like 30% of the round count, so he's at least 30% to blame. Go to his channel, link, it'll be the top link. Luke C is part of the TFB gang. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say if this really disqualifies the VCOG as still the most durable LPVO, but it probably speaks to the fundamental fact that the guts on the inside of the VCOG is still just a regular LPVO, and Scar Mark 17s are going to do Mark 17 things. Kind of bummed, because that does kind of take a hit to the VCOG mythos of invulnerability, so who knows. I'll let you decide. Let me know if you actually think the VCOG got BTFO'd here, or this is more of just Scar doing Scar things. I'll see you guys later. Oh, actually, subscribe Scar. Hi. It's a thing where you swipe your credit card and then you give me money every month, kind of like Netflix, but instead of a massive library of videos, you get occasional podcasts of me and Hop and sometimes others getting really drunk and showing you footage. I just shot 600 rounds of 308 for half a review and then broke a $2,000 optics. All support is appreciated. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.